Also want to ask your opinion, Peter, on one of the biggest stories this week, absolutely horrendous, in Nottingham. Just tell us briefly what happened with this Valdo Calocane guy, what happened to people he stabbed, a paranoid schizophrenic, absolutely horrendous, and so many things that he has done that could have been prevented.
This wicked, evil, monstrous waste of space took the lives of 3 people, Barnaby, Grace and Ian. Barnaby and Grace were students at the University of Nottingham. I hope that all the bereaved families and everybody who lost loved ones will forgive me just for a moment, because my youngest son came out of the same nightclub at the same time as Grace and Barnaby. He's at Nottingham Uni.
I didn't know that.
He and his mate got in a taxi rather than walking. Yes. They would have walked the same route as Grace and Barnaby. We had some fears, obviously, when the story broke, because we couldn't raise Ben. He was doing what a student should do after a late night out and was asleep. So the kind of anxiety we suffered, of course, pales into utter irrelevant insignificance compared with the horrors that Calocane carried out in murdering Grace and Barnaby and Ian. Yes, a dreadful, dreadful set of situation. Calocane also pleaded guilty to attempted murder of 3 other people because he stole Ian Coates' van and then drove it headlong into 3 other people who were facing the opposite way from the van, I hasten to add. Utterly murderous spree. Calocane pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility, which has caused massive frustrations with the families, understandably so. Grace's wonderful dad, who's a doctor, spoke about a lack of toxicology, and I'd just like to focus on this for the moment, if we may. It is a known fact that some people who indulge in smoking a lot of cannabis can develop psychosis or schizophrenia. That's a fact. Of course, not every cannabis smoker, I'm not saying that for a moment, but some people do. Now, Gracie's dad said there was no toxicology evidence. So clearly when Calocane got nicked, a senior officer didn't see it fit to apply for an intimate sample to be taken. In other words, a blood sample to be taken, so that perhaps they could check it to see if there was the presence of any drugs in it.
Yeah.
No evidence like that was put forward. So Gracie's dad mentioned that when he was speaking outside the court. I now would like to ask this question, and I don't have any evidence at all to suggest that Calocane was a cannabis user, but I'd like to find out. Because, just say, for example, there was evidence, bearing in mind he graduated himself from the University of Nottingham in 2022, so he's hung around, university.
Yes.
Other people have known him where he's lived around the country, other offences and the such like. Does anybody out there know and have evidence and be willing to speak to me about any possible or potential drug taking by Valdo Calocane?
Yeah.
If, and I say this is a very big if, I'm not accusing him of that, but it's a big if. Yes. Imagine if a number of people come forward and they say, yes, we would like to give evidence that he was a heavy cannabis user. That is fresh, brand new evidence, potentially.
Yes.
That could be put forward. It might, just might, lead to the guilty plea to manslaughter by diminished responsibility being set aside and he being actually tried for murder. Because, of course, if his mental illness was brought about by drug use, he cannot then plead guilty to manslaughter by diminished responsibility. You lose that. And I've heard nobody mention it at all, which is why and thank you to you and the station for enabling me to do that. If you knew Calocane and you knew anything about drug taking, please get in touch.
Peter, will you